In this video, I'm going to show how I made this small granite coffee table with a steel base. I'm going to give a few tips about welding a base like this out of square tubing. Most importantly, I'm going to show how I attach the granite top to the steel base securely. Now let's get started. This piece of granite is left over from the kitchen that I just remodeled, so it's cut out from where the sink would go. I have here 6 meters of 1-inch 14 gauge steel. I'm going to take some measurements. It was cut down to fit in my vehicle. It's going to be a coffee table. Usually a coffee table sits slightly lower than your couch. So I'm taking a look at the place where it's going to go, and I'm just figuring out exactly the height I want it to be. I'm just going to use the app CutList Optimizer to tell me how to take my cuts out of each piece. Typically this app is used for sheet goods such as plywood, but you can use it just as well for other types of materials. You just put in the dimensions of your source material under stock sheets, and then in panels put the measurements you want to end up with. It works great as long as you put in your measurements correctly and then follow what it tells you, which I did not do. I usually take a screenshot so I can easily reference it while I'm working. Now I'm going to start cutting down my material and getting it prepared to weld. This flap disc on a grinder is what I'm going to use to clean up the ends of these steel pieces where they'll be joined together. I found that preparation is half the battle with getting good welds, so you want everything to be clean and to have the best fit possible. I'm going to clamp everything down to this board to keep things from moving around as I'm welding. A lot of times if you're trying to weld up a perfect square, you'll weld one corner and then the heat will draw things together and it'll pull it out of square. I'm running some 6013 rods that I found in the back of an old barn. 6013 can be run on AC, DC negative, and DC positive. Today I'm running it DC electrode positive. I usually run it between 90 to 100 amps. After lots of experimentation with welding this thin square tubing, this is the setup that works best for me, but you need to try it out and see what works best for you. I need to grind these welds flat because I'm going to flip this over and clamp it back down to weld the other side. Now I'm going to use my first square as a reference to make the second one. I'm going to clamp it down on top of the first one, so that way I end up with 2 identical squares. Now I'm going to tack up the vertical pieces using these magnetic corner squares. They work alright for this, but I'd definitely be open to finding something better. Now everything's tacked up. Just for the hell of it, I decided to measure it, and it's too tall. I cut all my vertical pieces too long. So now I need to cut this down. Luckily, but awkwardly, it fits in my chop saw. So that did save me some time. Now that the vertical pieces are the right length, I'm gonna tack this top piece on again. I was running out of light and patience, so I didn't film this whole part. I got everything tacked up, then welded all the way around the joints. Now, here's where I'll pay for my sins as a mediocre welder. This is where I have to grind everything down so it looks good. I didn't weld all these inside corners because it's not really necessary for a table, but I wanted to fill them in, so I'll show you what I did. This stuff is basically Bondo. It's auto body filler. It has two parts that you mix together, and then you apply it where you want it, and it dries up within a few minutes. Then I'll bring out the grinder with the flap disc again and use it to smooth over the Bondo. I would definitely recommend using breathing protection like a respirator or dust mask while you're doing this, because I definitely would not want to breathe this stuff in, and it makes a whole lot of dust. It does leave everything looking very smooth. Now I'm measuring this space inside this top square. I'm going to cut a piece of wood to that exact dimension. Hey, and it's the same piece of wood that I used before to clamp everything to. I'm just making some very rough cuts with the circular saw. It just has to fit inside, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now it didn't fit inside because the corners are a little too pointy, so I just grabbed the closest tool and lopped off the corners. So the point of putting this wood piece in is it's going to give a lot of surface area for the glue to attach to. The granite top is going to be glued, and the wood is going to give it a lot of surface area, and it's going to bond to the glue a lot better than the steel would. The wood is going to be screwed to these corner pieces. I'm drilling some holes for the screws to pass through. These two corners are setting up kind of high. I want them to be flush with the steel, so I'm just going to knock them down with the flap disc. And I'm going to clean up with some thinner and hit it with some black spray paint. Now it's time to put my piece of wood in and screw it into place. The name of this product translates to no more nails. It's just a really strong all-purpose glue that is supposed to stick to anything. So I'm just gonna put a lot of that on here. I'm gonna use the whole thing, the whole tube. And then I'm gonna put my granite top on. I'm not gonna clamp it because there's a big risk of the granite piece cracking if I do that, but this granite piece is really heavy. So all I gotta do is get everything lined up for the glue sets and then just let it sit there. And it made a really strong bond.
Thanks for watching and see you next time.